Hello friends, Tanya here for Trinity Stamps, and today we're going to do some barbecue vibed themed cards. We have the double line check background here, and I'm using the stamp wheel just because I can stick the things to the plate. We're also going to use a piece of cardstock that I did some gel press printing with the Distress paint in Lumberjack Plaid. This is something I just had in my stash, and I love it when I can use some of the pieces that I've used just as a play and turn it into a card. This was a full 8.5 by 11-inch piece of cardstock. I cut it into 4 A2 size panels. They aren't necessarily going to be A2 sized cards, but that's the sizes I cut this down to, so it would be a little more manageable when it comes to stamping. I did decide to do some heat embossing over the top of this inky background. I'm using some Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder, and I actually quite like it. I really like those embossing powders. Next, we're going to use the new Stamp and Die Set from Trinity Stamps, the Un-grill-iveable. That is the name of it. It is really cute. It has all of these different barbecue themed stamps and sentiments. Of course, there's lots of puns. We love our punny sentiments. And we have a brat or wiener or frank, hot dog, however you want to call this. I've taken that and stamped it in some clear embossing ink all over this 3x6 inch panel. We're going to emboss that with some, what is this called? White satin pearl embossing powder, which is one of my favorite embossing powders. It just has this great tone-on-tone pearly quality to it, makes it very easy to see, and yet doesn't overpower your card. Now we're going to take one of these panels and we're going to glue it in a off-center diagonal fashion. So I'm just going to fuss around with this to get the placement that I like. And I'm trying to go from that top corner all the way to the side. And I'll just give that a good press and pick it up off my mat and clean off the glue I've left behind. And then we're going to take the stitched layers, mini slimline die in the the second layer. This will cut it just under 3 by 6 inches. Next, I'm going to take a bunch of sentiments from this stamp set, and I'm going to use some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink to stamp it on some heavyweight white cardstock. I do stamp it twice so that I get a good load of ink, and then I'm going to use some clear embossing powder to seal this ink in and create a raised sentiment. I'll take my heat tool and heat that up off screen. Next, we're going to stamp a whole bunch of these amazing little images in the stamp set. I'm going to stamp 2 of each of these. And these are most of the images in the stamp set. I think there's a few I missed, but these are the ones I want to use. I stamped them each once. Now I've colored them with Copic markers, and I'm going to go over my coloring one more time with the black ink just to sharpen up those lines and make these images really come to life. I'll do both sets, trying to be careful not to put my magnet over the top of the already inked images so I don't smear those after I've done all the work of coloring them. There are coordinating dies for every single element of this stamp set. I decided I wanted a circle. FYI, that was the foiling circles. Didn't realize that till I went to put it away. You can, turns out, die cut with them also. That is not how they're intended to work, so no guarantees that won't harm your die. Now I am gluing that circle in some craft colored cardstock. And we're going to add our Franks a Lot sentiment, and we're going to put a couple of brats here just to play along with that punniness. I love that red checkered background really reminds me of a picnic blanket, or not blanket. Well, yeah, could be blanket or tablecloth that you would throw over your picnic table. I brought out some clay sprinkles. These have been around for a while. These are called Bottoms Up, and they are little beer steins with a smiley face, and they have a variety of sizes and thicknesses, turns out. And I found that you can make them face either direction because the image is the same front and back, and I can put my handles facing whichever way I would like. So I'm taking a variety of sizes here and placing those around our brats. I know a lot of people like to eat brats and have a beer. We are adding some sentiments from both the Un-grill-iveable stamp set and from the Simply Sentimental Thanks stamp set. So in the end, this is going to say, your Un-grill-iveable, thank you for everything. I love how you can layer these into your own custom sentiment. Now, while I was messing around putting that sentiment in there, I did get some ink where I did not intend it. And I have a little sanding block here, and I just sanded off the ink. Next, we're going to add a few of those little pieces of clay embellishments and put them inside our card. And I apologize if you hear noises in the background. We are in the mad rush before going on a vacation, and my husband's trying to hurry up and pack. We are flying away in less than 12 hours. Next, we are going on to card number 2, and I've already die cut out the main panel of white cardstock using the Modern Embossed A7 stack. And I've taken a bunch more of the images, put them on an acrylic block, stamped them with clear embossing ink, and I stamped them all together in a grouping. And now I'm going to heat emboss them with the white satin pearl embossing powder again. So these 2 cards are going to have started with a similar thought pattern. And here you're going to see the white satin pearl just come to life. You'll have noticed that there was a little bit of black left on the salt and pepper and the salt shaker and the pepper grinder. But the white satin pearl embossing powder does not let that show through. Next, we're going to take Antique Linen Distress Oxide ink, and we're going to use that same grouping of stamps and stamp that all over the inside of the card in a nice random pattern. And it's actually by chance, I put them on this block, the different stamps, so that they nestle together fairly nicely. I just wanted to bring the design from the front of the card to the inside of the card, which I always love to do. Next, we're going to stamp the Have a Sizzlin' Birthday on the inside using VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And I have found that if you just give it a few seconds and don't move it, you do get a good transfer. That's a little tough sometimes though. So next we're going to glue our double checked background to the cardstock, and we'd already die cut that with the coordinating die. And then we're going to use these stitched strips and take the thin double line die and cut that from some craft cardstock again, and then just glue that right above the red cardstock. And usually I assemble things right on my card base, but I wanted to be able to trim off the excess with that strip of paper before I glued it to the card front. And I did put some scraps of cardstock behind the main panel just to give it a little extra stability. And I've layered each of these elements up with extra layers of cardstock, die cut with the same die as each of these images and the sentiment. This sentiment says, "You're not old, you're just well seasoned." Have I mentioned that I do love a good pun? And to keep that theme, I am adding the salt shaker and the pepper grinder and a couple of pieces of well-seasoned meat. I did layer these up with several layers of cardstock. It's actually a little higher than the other portions. And that completes my 2 cards. I did plan to do 4, but I was in a rush to get all of this done before we leave, and by the time this video goes live, we'll have returned. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do that now. And if you're looking for the products that I used today, they are all in the description box below. Until next time, here are a couple more videos you might enjoy. Bye-bye.